They once hid a map to an inner sense, a small, luminous place inside the head that could notice truth before words could. In fragments recovered from buried libraries, some early seekers described marks of remembrance and a capacity to see without eyes. Today, that center is often spoken of as the third eye, and in modern anatomy, the pineal gland sits at the crossroads of symbol and biology. But the story does not end with discovery. Right now, there are at least 7 forces, physical, cultural, and psychological, quietly hardening that inner hinge of perception. I'm going to name them, explain why they matter, and offer safe, practical ways to reclaim more clarity in your life. Before anything else, this video is informational and not medical advice. If you have health concerns about your brain, endocrine system, or overall well-being, please consult a qualified medical professional. Now, if you want more hidden threads like this, subscribe. Hundreds of miles from the Mediterranean, in a jar buried by sand and secrecy, scholars found brittle papyri that did not read like the familiar Gospels. These documents, often grouped under the name Nag Hammadi, recorded a different strain of early Christian thought, a language of inner knowledge, secret teachings, and signs that accompanied remembered ones. One of those texts, known as the Gospel of Philip, speaks in images, seals and marks, an intimacy between spirit and body, a claim that some humans bear visible signs of an inner connection. These are not mainstream dogma. They are alternative historical voices, fragments of how some communities once thought about inner knowing. I draw them into this conversation not to rewrite orthodoxy, but to remember a recurring theme: the idea that certain parts of our being register spiritual states, and that those registers can be dulled. In language older than our modern science, the marks were metaphors for sensitivity, a map of what it feels like to be open to deeper sight. In contemporary terms, the pineal gland sits where those maps and metaphors meet biology. It's a small endocrine organ, sometimes associated with melatonin production and circadian rhythms. It has, however, for centuries carried symbolic weight as the seat of inner vision. We will treat the pineal both as a real organ and as a poetic organ of attention. That duality allows us to speak of lifestyle and culture, physiology and lore, together. As we move through the 7 culprits, remember this boundary. Some studies suggest associations for certain factors. Many cultural dynamics are metaphorically calcifying, in the sense that they numb curiosity and inwardness. Where the script refers to health-related mechanisms, I remind you again, this is not medical advice. Consult a professional before making medical decisions. 1. Fluoride and waterborne additives, the slow encrusting. Imagine a slow, silencing rain. Over years, small elements lodge where openness once flowed. In certain Gnostic metaphors, a demiurgic force delights in layers that obscure the light. In modern terms, water fluoridation and other trace compounds are often accused, fairly or speculatively, of contributing to mineral deposits or shifting endocrine activity. Some observational studies and lab reports point to effects on calcification processes or melatonin rhythms, while other research finds limited or mixed effects. The science is nuanced, the worry is real. Why would a suppressive system favor this? Because making sight dull and routine, turning surprise into habit, keeps people docile. Practically speaking, what can you do? First, learn what your local water contains. If you have concerns, explore certified filtration options designed to remove specific minerals. Speak with public health resources or a local water specialist before choosing a system. Focus on plenty of filtered, clean water and support it with antioxidant-rich foods, leafy greens, berries, and foods high in magnesium, which some researchers associate with healthier mineral balance. If you take fluoride for dental reasons or have been advised by a dentist, consult them before making changes. Try this gentle check. Sit in a quiet, dim room, place your palm lightly on your forehead without pressing, close your eyes, and breathe slowly for 6 breaths. Notice any subtle warmth, tingling, or quiet stillness under your hand. Record a single line in a journal. I noticed. This is subjective, not diagnostic, simply a way to tune attention. 2. Heavy metals and industrial pollutants, the blunt instruments. In stories about suppression, archonic forces prefer heavy, blunt influences that weigh things down. Lead, mercury, and cadmium, present in air, soil, and sometimes in foods, are modern analogs. Some environmental studies link elevated heavy metal exposure to altered neurological function. Industrial pollutants can also interfere with hormonal signaling in ways researchers are still unpacking. The practical response is cautious and attainable. Reduce exposure by prioritizing whole foods, preferring low-mercury fish choices, and being mindful of where produce is grown. Use cookware and containers that are free from known toxicants. Avoid prolonged use of older painted surfaces that may contain lead. If you suspect real exposure, contact health professionals for testing and remediation guidance. Do not attempt invasive detox regimens on your own. A small, embodied practice. After a walk or an errand, take 3 long inhales and imagine the breath sweeping from the crown of your head down through your spine. Exhale slowly, imagining a small weight lifting. Notice if your mind feels a shade lighter. Again, this is about attention, not measurement. 3. Excessive refined sugar and processed foods, the cloak of fog. In the allegory, the archons blur perception through sweetness and distraction. Modern life supplies that blur in the form of refined sugar, a quick surge of reward, then a crash. Metabolically, high sugar intake can alter insulin signaling and inflammatory status. Inflammation has been implicated in many processes that affect brain health. Some preliminary research suggests diet influences sleep and hormonal rhythms in ways that touch pineal function. What to do? Start with proportion and rhythm. Reduce obvious sources of processed sugar, emphasize whole foods, include protein and fiber with meals to steady blood sugar, and introduce antioxidant-rich items such as dark fruits and cruciferous vegetables. Simple replacements, whole fruit for sweetened snacks, nuts for candy. Change the rhythm of reward in your nervous system. Mini check. Sit with a small glass of plain water. Close your eyes, breathe 2 slow cycles, and ask silently, where does my comfort come from right now? Notice the first impulse without judgment. If it points to sweetness as a habit, consider this an invitation to vary the habit. 4. Electromagnetic fields and constant connectivity, the humming net. There are modern mechanisms that function more like a veil than a deposit. Constant EMF exposure, nocturnal blue light, habitually sleeping next to emitting devices. Some researchers explore whether prolonged exposure to certain frequencies influences circadian rhythms and melatonin. Other angles are more cultural. Constant alerts fragment attention, making deep inward focus rare. Why would suppressive systems love this? Because a scattered, perpetually reactive population is easier to steer. Practical mitigations are simple and safe. Keep sleep areas phone-free or on airplane mode. Use blue light filters in the evening. Prioritize a dark, cool bedroom, and create tech-free windows during your day for sustained attention. If you have medical devices or specific EMF concerns, consult specialists for individualized advice. Try this. For 60 to 120 seconds before bed, dim screens and instead practice a no-device breath. Place your hands gently on your knees, breathe in for 3 counts and out for 4, and notice the body settling. This is a practice of attention, not a claim to change biology on its own. 5. Chronic stress and pharmaceutical sedation, numbing by design. Stress in small doses sharpens, chronic stress dulls. Cortisol rhythms, prolonged sympathetic activation, and the compensatory use of certain medications can together change sleep patterns and the quality of inner awareness. Some medications are essential and life-saving. The point here is not to demonize prescriptions, but to name that prolonged sedation, whether chemically or culturally encouraged, can suppress subtle states of attention. If you're dealing with chronic stress or under prescriptions, speak with your healthcare provider before changing anything. Complementary practices that many find helpful include short, daily breath awareness sessions, progressive relaxation, gentle movement, and structured rest. Therapy, community support, and careful medication management with a clinician can help balance symptom relief and inner vitality. A brief somatic check. Place one hand over your heart and the other over your belly. Breathe slowly and feel the rise and fall. Note any areas of tightness or softening. Jot one sentence about what you felt. That noticing is a first step toward reclaiming agency. 6. Entrenched belief systems and institutional conditioning, the cultural calcifier. Archons in myth are not only substances, they are stories, routines, and authorities that teach you to outsource your seeing. Institutions, schools, certain religious structures, and powerful media patterns can unintentionally train people to trust external validation over interior sensing. If the inner sense is trained to defer to institutions alone, that faculty atrophies. This is less about conspiracy and more about habit. Questioning does not mean rejecting everything. It means cultivating the practice of examining assumptions. Read widely. Engage with alternative scholarly sources, including those recovered from Nag Hammadi, with curiosity and discernment. Find a community of practice where honest questions are allowed and learn to hold ideas lightly while you test them in experience. An exercise. For 5 minutes, write a list of 3 beliefs that you hold as unquestioned. Next to each, write one alternative explanation and one small way to test or explore that idea in your life. This is intellectual hygiene, not rebellion for its own sake. 7. Sleep deprivation and poor light exposure. The guardians left unattended. The pineal is entwined with day-night cycles. Proper sleep and morning sunlight are biological signals that orchestrate melatonin and wakefulness. When you miss mornings or live under artificial light all day, the timing of those signals blurs. Many studies highlight how light exposure patterns affect circadian biology. And while the detailed connections to the pineal are the subject of ongoing research, the practical upshot is straightforward. Light and sleep matter. Mitigations are concrete and low risk. Commit to morning sunlight for a few minutes, even a short barefoot stand on a balcony or by a window. Limit bright, blue-heavy screens in the 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Keep consistent sleep and wake times. If you have shift work or chronic sleep disorders, work with sleep specialists to develop plans that address your unique circumstances. Before we move to the activation sequence, let's pause and notice what the archons of the mind might be saying. It's normal for skeptical voices to say, "This sounds too mystical," or "This is just another wellness fad," or "I don't have time." In our metaphor, such thoughts are expected protective reflexes, not necessarily enemies, simply parts of the psyche doing their job. The practice is to notice, not to argue. Here is a short noticing ritual. When a skeptical or anxious thought arises, label it silently. Thinking, and return to one slow breath. Repeat twice. If it persists, write the thought down and set a timer for 5 minutes to explore it later. This reduces its power in the present moment and keeps you in the practice of examining evidence rather than reacting. Now, a safe activation sequence. A practical, non-medical set of steps you can use as a ritual of attention. These are lifestyle supports, not cures, and not substitutes for professional care. 1. Morning light and breath. Upon waking, before screens, open a window or step outside for 3 to 5 minutes. Take 5 full, slow inhales, imagining light entering at the top of your head and flowing down through your body. 2. Evening dimness and rhythm. In the hour before your planned sleep, reduce bright light and screens. Consider reading, gentle stretching, or a quiet tea ritual that signals winding down. 3. Stabilize meals and reduce refined sugar. Aim to combine protein, fiber, and healthy fats with meals. Small dietary shifts help stabilize mood and sleep. 4. Technology boundaries. Make your sleeping area a low EMF zone. Keep devices out of reach or in airplane mode overnight. Schedule tech-free windows during the day for undistracted attention. 5. Gentle somatic release. Twice daily, do a neck and shoulder roll and a light head mobilization. Without pressing, tilt your head slowly left and right. Breathe, and notice space around the cranial base. Do not press or manipulate any internal parts. 6. Community and inquiry. Find at least one person or group you can discuss these ideas with: a friend, a mindful group, an online community committed to respectful exploration. 7. A spoken symbolic declaration. In a quiet moment, say aloud a short sentence that affirms your intention. I open my mind to truth and care for my body that it may receive it. This is symbolic. It reinforces attention and agency. Again, these practices support well-being and attention. They are not medical treatments. If you have concerns about sleep, mood, or neurological function, consult qualified clinicians. We have now named 7 influences that, in both literal and symbolic ways, can harden the gateway of inner seeing. Waterborne additives, heavy metals, refined sugar and processed foods, electromagnetic overload, chronic stress and sedating approaches, entrenched cultural conditioning, and disrupted light sleep cycles. Some are chemical, some are cultural, some are psychological, and each has a practical pathway back to liveliness. I want to acknowledge resistance. When you start to shift your routine, expect the world to invite you back to the old rhythms. Friends may joke, work may demand immediate responsiveness, and your own habits will plead for familiarity. Consider those pressures the modern form of archonic friction, not mystical persecution, but the gravitational pull of habit. Name them, breathe, and make small, sustainable changes rather than dramatic overhauls. The most durable transformation is gradual and kind to the body and relationships. 2 more quick sensory checks to anchor this work. First, in the morning after light exposure, close your eyes for a minute and notice if colors appear more vivid in memory. Write 1 sentence about any difference. Second, before sleep on a low-light night, place a hand above your heart and feel the rhythm. If tension is present, try 1 elongated exhale. Note any softening. These are subjective barometers of attention, not medical measures. A final word about the sources we mentioned. The texts found at Nag Hammadi and fragments like the Gospel of Philip are fascinating artifacts of early, alternative spiritual thought. They offer metaphors, rituals, and perspectives that can enrich contemporary practice. They are not canonical scripture for most traditions, and their claims should be read as part of a broader tapestry of historical voices. Use them as provocative maps, not as literal instruction manuals for biology. What I hope you carry from this is not fear, but agency. Many things push against inner attention, but many small acts restore it. You are not passive. Your habits, your sleep, the light you greet in the morning, the questions you permit yourself to ask. These are the tools of reclamation. One last reminder. This video is informational and does not replace professional medical advice. If you suspect medical issues, consult a doctor or specialist. If you're considering changes to prescriptions, discuss them with the clinician who prescribed them. If anything here landed in you, a subtle warmth, a note of curiosity, or a question, I want to hear it. Comment below with the word awaken and tell me what you noticed during the practices. I read and respond. We close with the old idea. Memory is not elsewhere. It lives in small, recoverable moments of attention. Care for the conditions that let those moments arise, and the possibility of seeing more clearly returns.